Hello there, everyone. Tania Gustafson here, your nutritionist and fitness coach. Welcome back to another episode of Fit Nutrition Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about sugar and how that relates to aging, and it's really not so sweet of a deal. All right. So, sugar is a toxin, right? And when we put toxins into our body, it causes causes our cells to oxidize. And I'm going to go into exactly what that is coming up. But first, before we get into it, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you have any questions as you're watching this. Drop them in the comments below. If you don't happen to be watching live, that's okay. If you're on the replay, I will watch for those and I will come back and answer them. So let me know where you're watching from, if you have any questions, and what resonates with you as you watch. All right. So first of all, let's talk about sugar and what is sugar. So sugar is obviously, that white stuff on the table. It's also brown sugar. It's also honey and agave and coconut palm sugar and all the things, right? Anything that's sweet. Now, the artificial sweeteners are toxic as well, and that's a whole other ballgame. So all of these toxins and things that convert to sugar. So when we eat things that are readily available to our body, so things that are highly processed, so like the breads and the crackers and the cereals and the granola bars and all those kinds of things, they immediately convert to sugar in our body. Glucose goes way up, insulin goes way up, and anything that causes that spike in our body and the way that everything goes and functions in our body, the process is called glycation. Okay, so thinking about that way, you're glycating. All right, that's a little verb there. So sugar accelerates that process. And I'm going to explain what that process is. That whole process of the aging and whatever, it's called glycation. It's fueled by dysregulated blood sugar. So we talk a lot here in our group about stabilizing your blood sugar, right? Because that's what we need to do with our proteins, our fats, and our carbs together. We put them together in the right portions, in the right frequencies throughout the day. Every 3, maybe 4 hours, maybe 2.5, if you're having a heavy work day, or for kids if they're growing, things like that. So that's a whole other podcast, but you get the idea, right? Proteins, fats, and carbs together in the right portions, in the right frequencies throughout the day, stabilizes your blood sugar, and that keeps us balanced. That keeps the inflammation down. So why is that important? So inflammation is the root cause of all disease, okay? And things that are inflammatory, like I was talking about at the beginning there, are things like sugar, anything that's packaged or processed, or, the sodas, all that kinds of stuff causes the blood sugar to spike. And every time that happens, your body over releases insulin, because when our blood sugar goes up, right, the body naturally says, oh, hey, insulin, bring it back down. That's too high. Hello. So it releases insulin, right? But when you have these massive spikes from things that are highly processed, it causes us to go way above where we normally would when we just eat your proteins, fats, and carbs together. It brings our blood sugar back up to where it should be, not spiking up to where it shouldn't be. Okay, so there's a difference. We want it to come up when we're low, but we don't want it to go way up here. Okay, so every time we come way up here, our body then over releases insulin, so it gets too much, to try and counteract that quickly, and then we come crashing down shortly afterwards. So you ever been maybe been at work, haven't had an office lunch, or missed lunch but grabbed a donut or some kind of muffin or something, and you're feeling okay because you got something in your stomach, and then you sit down to have that meeting right after lunch and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't keep my eyes open. Anybody ever done that? I have done that years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, I just ate. Why am I so tired? Oh, maybe I shouldn't have even eaten in the first place, which that wouldn't have been good either, because we know now that would have just made me hangry, right? So what we need to eat the right things. But so unless we so that what that does, right, we've over released the insulin, and then it causes us to come crashing down. So every time that happens, it causes the cells in our body to break down and oxidize, which speeds up the aging process. That's the word glycation and oxidation. They all kind of go together. And the analogy I have here that best describes that is like when you slice an apple. Okay, so unless you wrap it up or put it away, or put a wrapper on it, or put it in a container, or put some lemon juice on that apple, it will turn brown. The exposed area that's not covered, it gets soft, it gets mushy, eventually it rots, right? Okay, we all know that. Now, putting lemon juice on it, or wrapping it up in a saran wrap, or putting it in a container, is not going to prevent it from ever breaking down, but it's sure going to slow it down a lot, right? I mean, we know that if we cut that apple, and I've got a good visual here for you. Hang on. So let me grab the visuals here. So when we put the lemon juice on the apples, we get this, right? We get these lovely, nice white apples, and they stay nice and white. We typically want to do that if we're putting apples in a salad, or if we're, doing something where we want them to be seen. We don't want them to look all brown and mushy. If we're making an apple pie, of course, we're putting the cinnamon on anyway. We want them to break down. It's going to be nice and soft, good to go, right? So there we're okay. However, when we don't do that, and it's there where for everyone to see, doesn't look so nice, right? And we get this. And when we get this, the apple is brown, right? And eventually it starts to rot. You can see this it's been sitting there for a while. That backside's been cut there. It's cut here. It starts to go brown. And eventually it rots a whole heck of a lot quicker than the first apple that I showed you there that had the lemon juice on it, right? All right, so that's my point. So that's glycation. Picture that with your cells in your body. Okay, you've got these nice round cells like the apples. Okay, they're all cut in half, floating around in your body, floating around. The more often you have those sugary things or things that turn to sugar and spike that blood sugar way up to cause an over release of insulin, okay, it's like you're still cutting them in half, but you're not putting the lemon juice on. You're rapidly cutting them in half with no lemon juice on them. So you're cutting them in half and half and half and half and half, breaking them down with no lemon juice. So pretty soon they're all brown and they break down really quickly. And then the aging process speeds up. Okay. So that's one of the reasons when you look at people and you can see, you ever look at somebody and they're maybe like 50 or 60 or 70, I don't know, pick a decade that works for you. And you think, dang, that person looks good, right? Well, they have slowed down their aging process. They may not even have known that they're doing that if they just are naturally gravitated towards choosing healthier food options. And maybe they learned about balance somewhere way back. Could be. Sometimes people naturally just do that because they found in their body they feel better. And other times people have had the opposite reaction where they're like, oh my goodness, I am just aging way too fast. I've got aches and pains. I've got all these wrinkles. What's going on here? And they start to seek out things. Or other people don't even realize, that's the third class of people, the third group of people, and they just don't even realize that what they're doing, what they're putting in their body or what they're not putting in their body or how they're putting it in their body is really not serving their body, and it's causing them to age faster. So you might see two people from your graduating class years ago, and one looks just like, you can tell who they are across the room, looks like the same person. It's like, hey, how you doing? And then someone else walks up to you and says to you, hey, how are you doing? And you look at them and you're almost like a deer in the headlights. You're like looking for a name tag because that person looks so aged. You hardly recognize them, right? That's glycation in action. That's what happens. They have not put the lemon juice on their cells. What they've done is caused repeated blood sugar spikes in their body, over release of insulin to cause that browning effect to happen. Now, thinking about this, so scientists have done, in autopsies and things like that, where they have seen that a tiny baby or someone who's very, very young, when you look inside their body, their bones are white still. We think of bones as white, right? We think of them as white. But as you get older, the bones of an older person or an elderly person are not that nice bleachy white anymore. It's like the apple. First it's white, then it kind of gets a bit yellowy beige, then it gets a bit beigey brown, and then it gets really dark brown, and then it really starts to break down, and then the person passes away and they're quite dark. So if you looked at the color of your bones when you're born and when you die, there's a huge discrepancy in color, and it's just like the apple. And what happened is that process of aging. Now, how long it takes for you to get to, from white to super, super brown, and how well you age depends on how well you keep that glucose in check, how well you keep it balanced. So that's why I'm saying, sugar it does have an effect on aging, and it's not very sweet because it accelerates our aging. Does that mean you can never have sugar or never have processed items? No, but we need to know how to balance them in the best way possible. There's also different orders to the way that you can eat food, which is going to help to minimize that as well too. And I'm going to do a podcast on that as well too, or a training, one of the two, so that you can actually maximize your results about that too. So here we go. Here's a little bit of an example about someone's day and what they may be doing to accelerate their aging process without even knowing it. All right, so think about it. Having a bagel at breakfast and a double or a latte on the way to work, then a muffin at coffee break, or a soda or an energy drink or some sort of pick-me-up in the afternoon, maybe pasta, red wine for dinner. Just a few examples of foods that cause blood sugar spikes, causes your blood sugar to spike and then become dysregulated. But think about if that was your whole day, right? Because the bagel at breakfast doesn't have any protein with it. Now, if you're going to have that bagel or half a bagel and have some scrambled eggs with it, now you're balanced, right? But if you're just having that bagel, maybe a little bit of jam on it, something like that, you might have a little smear of cream cheese. It's not going to help in the huge big bagel realm of bagel, right? You have to have an awful lot. And that's just not going to work. And then you're having that double latte on the way to work. So more sugar, more carbs going in. You stop for a little break and there's muffins in the coffee room. So you're having a muffin, again, no protein there. So all of these things are causing blood sugar to spike, and then an over release of insulin, because it's gone straight up, right? That is why then people are looking for that soda or the energy drink or another latte or something in the afternoon, because they get that crash after lunch. They've just been spiking all day, and they sit down for that meeting, or they're finishing up work, or they're driving home. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to doze off at my steering wheel here. And that's not where we want to be, right? And so when there's things like that are happening, that means that there's something wrong, there's something off that's happened throughout the day to make you arrive at that point. And all the while you're doing that, you are glycating, and you're leaving the lemon juice off the apple, and your apple's browning. So your cells are browning, they're oxidizing. So that repeated spikes, it's just what I was just talking about. Here's a prime example. I've got a few notes here. Prime example of what can cause AGE, so advanced glycation end products. So it's aptly named, right? The acronym is AGE. We know that glycation causes us to age faster, accelerate aging. So it's aptly named. They're harmful compounds that are formed in the body when protein and excess sugar combine. Okay, so we don't want those things to happen. The more sugary, packaged, processed, fast, deep fried foods or things like that, the more AGEs that are formed in your body. So you knew that those kinds of things weren't that great for you, but now you know why, right? Those AGEs trigger the glycation. Okay, so we know what glycation does. It makes the apples brown. We know that we don't want that. It accelerates aging. And now we know that these AGEs trigger the glycation. It actually turns it on. So it turns the accelerated aging and causes metabolic disease. So that's what happens as we speed up our aging. We predispose ourselves to more and more disease. We're at the time in our history right now in Canada and the United States where there are more people than ever that are suffering with metabolic diseases, otherwise known as lifestyle diseases, right? There's high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, prediabetes, cancer, all of these kinds of things, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all of these kinds of things are fueled by dysregulated blood sugar, which begs the questions. First question, when you think about what you're eating throughout the day, how well are you balancing your blood sugar? And number two, how much glycation are you creating by what you're eating? So think about that. So maybe think about how much premature aging is going on inside your body because of it. So if your day looks like the bagel at breakfast with the double or the latte on the work, the muffin, the soda or the latte on the way home, and then maybe the pasta and red wine for dinner. If your day looks like that, you are literally, spiking, and which causes your body to store fat, by the way, too. So something else we don't want. So it's actually fueling your cells in a negative way to create accelerated aging. And it's also storing fat. So 2 strikes against you, right? Something that you really don't want to happen. And currently 9 out of 10 deaths in America are attributed to metabolic disorders. Nobody wants that, right? So, like I said, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes, vision impairment, eyes are very sensitive, kidney damage, fatty liver disease are all caused or made worse by dysregulated blood sugar. Dementia and Alzheimer's have for years quietly been called type 3 diabetes as well. So I'm not sure how many of you knew that, but yes, type 3 diabetes, go ahead and Google it. It'll come up in pair with those kinds of things. So what goes on in our brain definitely has some merit here with how we are regulating or not our blood sugar, right? So the irony here, again, we're back to this crazy circle. The irony here is that the diseases themselves, all of those metabolic diseases I just listed, and the Alzheimer's and the irony here is that these diseases themselves can accelerate the production of AGEs, which then fuel the glycation, which fuels the metabolic disease, which accelerates the production of AGEs, and it just goes round and round and round. Okay, so then it creates a vicious cycle for ourselves. So what we eat, how and when we eat it, will either stabilize your blood sugar or cause you to glycate. That's the bottom line. It's that you're either stabilizing or you're glycating. No 2 ways about it. So if you for that visual picture, keep the picture in your mind, right? Like the apple, and the really nice fresh apple with the lemon juice, or the other apple that didn't get the lemon juice on and it's starting to go brown. Okay. Oh, sorry, my puppy's in the background. So that's not where you want to be, right? And just thinking about that, thinking about how you can make some healthy changes, or how you can pair some things together with what you have currently been eating so that you can balance better. It's not about, changing everything in one fell swoop and overhauling your whole day in 2 minutes. It's not going to generally work like that. You're going to have to, find different swaps that work for you. And if you're already started and living the PFC lifestyle, awesome for you. Way to go, Fit Lifer. If you're not, if you're just watching this podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. How do I do this PFC3 thing? Okay. You can go to fuelignitethrive.com. I'll drop the link here in the text of this podcast here. You can go there. You can watch my training video on that. There's some more information there. And we can have a chat about this as if this is something that you have not yet started or you're looking for more information on. So just to recap, okay, when we are young, our bones are nice and white. As we get older, they get brown, they're, quite dark brown. That space in between and how fast we get from here to here is dependent on how well you balance your blood sugar, how well you control that glucose, how well you put together your proteins, fats, and carbs in the right portions, in the right frequencies throughout the day, so that you can create some blood sugar stabilization there, which also creates hormonal balance. Okay, so we can balance our hormones, we can stabilize our blood sugar, which stops the glycating process. It doesn't let our body create AGEs. It keeps us balanced. It keeps our metabolism turned on. It keeps our body releasing stored fat instead of adding stored fat. Protects your muscle, so your muscle can take up that released stored fat and burn it as energy, so you're not nodding off in the afternoon, like after the meeting or on your way home. Heaven forbid at the wheel, nodding off on the way home, not a good place to be. Or you get home and you're just like exhausted by the end of the day and there's nothing left for your family. Also, not the place you want to be, right? So I just invite you today, if this is something that you have been dabbling in or looking at and you're not quite sure, and maybe this has tweaked something in your mind thinking about that apple. Do you want to, you want to be the white one or the brown one? Come on, put some lemon juice on your cells. I invite you to click the link and watch the training and book a call with me and we'll have a little chat. And if you're already living the fit lifestyle, I love it if you shared a few comments below. if this actually gave you a little bit more insight, if you learned something, or if if you knew that, and so that's why you made some healthy changes and what that meant for you. I would love to hear that. So thanks again for watching, you guys, for joining in with another Fit Nutrition podcast. Come back next week, and I'll see you again. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see your comments. Have an awesome day.